Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Wednesday, and all of our guests today, including Ian Furness, standing by, brought to you by our title sponsor, Able Auctions, ableauctions.ca. Joined now by Ian Furness from KGR Sports Radio and the Kraken Hockey Network. Ian, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
Good, gentlemen. How are you guys doing?
Very well. Who was that team that scored 4 goals in the third period down in Nashville last night? Any idea?
Well, I know it wasn't the Vancouver Canucks, sir. I know that. Have you scored 4 goals yet this season?
In the opener.
I wanted to make an Edmonton joke, but I can't do that since they came back last night. So, hey, big win. Great trip. They go on a 3-game trip to Minnesota, Dallas, and Nashville and take 4 out of 6 points. The only loss was on Sunday, a back-to-back, second half of a back-to-back in Dallas after they'd won the night before in Minnesota. But it looks a lot like, in terms of the scoring, like the Kraken team that made the playoffs 2 years ago. They don't have superstars necessarily. 12 different guys had a point last night. 6 guys had multi-points. So, big win. Nice little road trip. And they come home to take on the Flyers of Philadelphia and your friend Torts tomorrow night.
Nashville winless, by the way.
Yeah.
Not just the Canucks, also, by the way. Hey, can you see a difference? I know it's very early with Dan Bylsma behind the bench.
Big difference. The pace is different. Just watching from the breakouts and the pace they're playing with, they're playing faster. They're playing more. I guess the easiest way to say is more vertical. You know, I mean, it just the Hackstall way was tough to watch at times, and I know it can be effective. I think it was really effective in the postseason 2 years ago. But playing that way 82 games, when you have enough skill and you have some speed, it was just hard, and you're trying to sell the game down here. But more importantly, they're creating chances, and they're getting up the ice fast. They've got guys like Montour who can move the puck, Vince Dunn who can move the puck. Riker Evans has really played well early on. I mean, he's been fantastic for them, and you get some speed up front with guys like Chandler Stevenson who they added to the lineup, and it's just a different looking team. It really is. Although it's 15 guys back from last season. Couple of additions and a different coach and a different mindset, and frankly a different attitude with Bylsma. He's a positive guy. He's a fun guy. He's kind of reinvented himself after what happened in his previous couple stops, goes to the minors, and so far so good. It's been a fun start. Wasn't a good start the opening night. They blew a 2-0 lead, lost to St. Louis, but I think last night and even on Saturday against Minnesota, you can see the promise for this team.
Ian, Seahawks 3 losses in 11 days, but that defense, checking into some numbers, they've allowed 403 yards on the ground.
That's all?
On the ground, only on the ground. And they make the trade for the defensive lineman. Can they fix that? I mean, they got to get going here because teams are running hard on them.
Yeah, Rick, it's been weird. Like they hired a coach. We just talked about Bylsma, and they hired a coach that's a defensive coach and supposed to be a master defensive genius, and it hasn't looked that way. Now, you always ask yourself, is it the X's and O's, Jimmy's and Joe's? What side do you fall on? But it hasn't worked. They've had some injuries up front, but every team in the NFL has injuries. The hard thing is the defense. Yeah, those numbers don't lie. 2 weeks ago, the offense looked great against against Detroit, 500-plus yards. Last Thursday, I guess, so 6 days ago against the 49ers, the offense couldn't do anything. They haven't played a complete game. I think that's the hard thing, and I've mentioned this a couple times on our show down here, that for them, like every game has been somewhat of a slog or a struggle, even the 3 games that they won, maybe with the Miami exception, but they didn't have a quarterback. I mean, the 3 of us could have played quarterback in that game. It was that bad. But every other game, like they fell behind against Denver. They had to go to overtime against a bad New England team. And we've seen in every one of those games, it's been like, okay, the defense played really well today, or the offense played really well today, but none of those times both. And so maybe the long break will help them and when they go to Atlanta on Sunday. 3 games in 11 days is tough in the NFL. It just is. That's the reality of it. But, they've got to be better on both sides of the ball. It's not just the defense.
I read this article in the Seattle Times, not enough star power in Seattle. Ian, Seahawks, Mariners, Kraken, Sounders, University Sports. Do you agree with that?
Broadcasting.
Broadcasting.
Donnie, yes. 100% on the last one. Yeah, it's about time that Matt Culkins, the columnist, gave us a column. Most of the time, he just steals our content off the air, so we appreciate that.
Wow.
So I'm stealing that today. It's actually, we're going to talk about that today because, there isn't a superstar. We've kind of had those discussions. I think the prevailing thought was.
Looks like we've lost Ian.
A superstar.
This would be Julio.
There he
just
is.
hasn't played well enough. Cal Raleigh's probably the most popular Mariner player right now.
Yeah.
Oh, unstable. Okay, I'll pick it up there. Can I pick it up? Yeah. Cal Raleigh's probably the biggest, most popular Mariner right now, right? And so I don't know who the Seahawk is, to be honest with you. I don't know who that superstar would be. Gone are the days of all those stars like Earl and Cam and Russ and Marshawn. You know what? The easy answer: Marshawn's still probably the biggest star down here, and he's been retired for 5 or 6 years. So, and the hockey team's interesting because I think when they signed Joey Daccord, Joey's kind of a face for these guys. I think Joey Daccord is maybe the most popular player on the team.
Wow.
I throw that out there. Goaltenders can be that. They're either probably you probably love them or hate them, right? It's one or the other. It's one or the other. Joey signed that 5-year, $25 million extension last weekend. And we've kind of thought for a while that Joey is that guy. But he's not the number one. It's 1 and 1A or however you want to look at it. So, and just to bring it back to what, our first conversation, if they're a playoff team this year, the Kraken, it's going to be like a playoff team 2 years ago where they don't have a Norris candidate. They don't have a superstar. They don't have a no-brainer all-star probably. They do it with 4 lines. And so they don't have a superstar right now either. I don't know if Matty or Shane will ever be that guy, just personality-wise, to be honest with you. So, yeah, we're kind of void of superstars. But honestly, in team sports, who cares? Just win.
Win.
Just win. I mean, we put guys up on pedestals in Seattle that, that frankly, didn't accomplish much. But because they still live here, we think that they're legends or what have you. So, I just, as long as you win, you're fine. That's it. And the Mariners have some guys, but they just haven't really jumped out yet.
Oh, that would never happen in Vancouver.
No,
by the way.
Yeah, you know what? I was going to take a shot, but it's sometimes when you sleep in the same bed, it's pretty hard, right?
Yeah.
And
they're similar.
Honestly, Donnie, right? I think back when I was growing up, there's some Canucks players that are legendary that were good NHL players, right? Mm-hmm. But they're legends in Vancouver, and it's kind of the same thing. And Dan Wilson, take the manager stuff aside, Jay Buhner, guys like that, they were good Major League Baseball players. They weren't superstars, but they're revered in this town. And so it's we have a bunch of Sonics. We don't have the damn NBA anymore. We have a bunch of Sonics that are like they walk down Detlef Schrempf walks down the street. He's a superstar. Sean Kemp, guys like that. So, man. The more I think about it, this is kind of you and me, Donnie. The old guys, they're all legends because they're old. That's what it is.
Longevity.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about the legend part.
We brought up my internet today.
We brought up Slick Watts on the show last week, just so you know, because of headband wearing.
And he had a stroke about a year and a half ago. He's on the road to recovery. He's one of the most beloved people down here.
Yeah.
One of the nicest human beings on the planet. Yeah, you guys remember Slick Watts? I remember Kirk McLean. Guys, it's just we
downtown
have
Freddie Brown.
Guys. Yeah. Is Louis Pasega? Is you still your kicker up there for the Lions?
Yeah. No, we have a good kicker. We're
going down old guys' memory lane, and we've lost 90% of our audience, I think.
Is it, Donnie? Isn't that Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. on this show?
Yes, it is. Glad you brought that up.
I think Ryan would agree with that.
Hey, listen, we were the ones who made the technical hiccup here. So
exactly.
Let's set the record straight.
That's Comcast in the United States of America. That's their fault, not
listen,
mine. I apologize.
We're going to have you on next week. I know the NBA was in Seattle on Friday. Let's talk about that next week. Ian, thanks so much for doing this, my friend. And like I said, we'll talk to you next week.
Let's talk about old Sonics and old NBA players and maybe even old Grizzlies. We'll talk about that. How's Steve Francis doing? See you then.